All right, so last video we had to make adjustment to few items with the button. We created the button, we added a space of the 40 px to the margin top. All right, and we added background color to the button as well. We created the label. We adjusted the label size, the font size to 34, added margin button to it and the rest, right? So at this junction, what we need to do now is create a JavaScript file that will help us to handle, that will add functionality to the site. JavaScript is a programming language that adds interactivity to your website. So JavaScript comes with bundles of tools that you can use to make your website respond to certain events. All right, like when a button is clicked or when the user types in something, you want to get what the user types and then use it to pass a message to the user, or grab it and continuously use that data to communicate with your machine to carry out other tasks. All right, so it is important you understand this. So you need to know that JavaScript is the beginning point of programming. All right, you use JavaScript to make things come into reality. Like what CSS does is it beautifies your entire website. It has beauty to it and all that. Without CSS, you will have a plain looking text on your website without colors or size or whatever. So, but with CSS, you can change the entire look of the website. Now, if you were following this video, you know that I began with this link, which is link rel style sheets. And what this does, it helps to communicate with your CSS styling. All right, so we have linked this page to this particular file. I created this file style as CSS, and so all I do is I just pick the name of I just pick the tag names that I have here, bring them into this CSS page, and then add some styles to them. And when I save the CSS, it automatically adjusts some of the items here. All right, so this is a good practice if you really want to become a very good front-end developer. You don't want to write so many codes on your front page, on your HTML. You need to stay organized, move your styling to where you need to move them to, and then your HTML will be free from so many codes. Okay, so imagine if we have all this in HTML, we'll be scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and this might become too uncomfortable for us. So now, if you've been watching my videos for a while now, you should understand basic linking. All right, so you could go back to some of my intro videos on JavaScript so you don't miss anything. Now, we want to link our JavaScript file just the same way we link CSS. We need to link a JavaScript file. First, we need to create the JavaScript file. So I'm going to name this app.js because JavaScript brings app functionality to a website. Okay, so what we need to do now next is go to HTML and link this new JavaScript that we created. JavaScript has its own tag. It's called script. All right, it's a script tag. You open and close the script tag. All right, so you open the script tag and then you close it. I'm expecting this to close automatically. We don't know why. Okay, close. Okay. So now we are not typing anything in between here, all right? So what we're going to do is just we automatically link this page because we don't want to start typing all our JavaScript file in here. Okay, let's keep things simple. So we type script. Source means where you're gonna be getting your code from, your programming, your scripts, right? All the codes you're gonna write to control the elements here or communicate with this element. I'm going to communicate with app.js. I've created this file already. App.js. Okay, so save that. So with that means I can go on and retrieve, get information from that HTML down here. Now, remember when we're creating elements and we were creating variables in JavaScript, we need to also get elements from HTML. Okay. Now we like CSS, you can style it in JavaScript. You can also use tag names, but we're not going to use tag names in JavaScript. Okay. We are going to use an identifier. Each element will have an identifier. Then we can now use that identity to communicate with some of the things here. With JavaScript, I can, if I want to get what the user type inside this input box, first I need to give this input box an identity, right? So I said this is input one, IMP1. Okay, so that's IMP1. Okay, then the next thing I want to do is this is gonna be IMP2, sorry, ID IMP2. So IMP1, IMP2. Button, we're also going to give it an ID. Now, the reason why you want to give your button an ID is because you have to click on the button. So JavaScript will add a functionality to your button such that when you click on it, it will do something, okay? So we need to pick the name of this button and send it to JavaScript. So button ID is PTN, all right? So we have IMP1, IMP2, IMP3, okay? So go down here. So what we need to do now is create a variable for IMP1. So I'll say that this is going to be my user input. User input. If you haven't checked my video on how to get elements from HTML to JavaScript, you need to go to my JavaScript rendering method and mechanism, parsing methods. You see them: JSP, JSBP, JavaScript beginner program, JavaScript beginner program 1 to 4. You get yourself covered with all this. So what we need to do now is to use a method called document.query selector. All right, so yeah, so I'm going to get the document or query selector. I'm going to get the ID. All right, so the query selector will search for the name of the ID. All right, so I'm going to use the I symbol, the symbol, and then IMP1. So this is going to be user input, right? We're going to search for document or query selector. We'll query the HTML and get the ID name of the IMP1. All right, so straight away we'll console.log immediately to test and check if we are actually getting a feedback from this. Sorry, let's see, console.log. Now we're going to log this out in JavaScript because we've just created a name, a variable name. So user input. So all right, so let's go to page. Let's go to our browser and see what this looks like. All right, so inspect the elements. Don't forget our JavaScript mechanism is console rendering. When we use the console to render. All right, so let me refresh this page. Okay, so console.log inputs. I'm getting, this is my console logging out the ID. This is IMP1 that we got. We use query selector to get this. So this is what we get. All right. Okay, so what we need is that if someone types John here, we want to retrieve John and display it on the screen, or say welcome John, something. All right. By default in HTML, you can create a default value. All right. In HTML, you can create a default value. For example, let's assume that the user has typed in something in the browser. So we just say the value equals user. Okay, so that's it. Save it. No, so we'll go back to app.js. So the beautiful thing about JavaScript is that you can actually, the beautiful thing about JavaScript is that you can actually log out what the user has typed into the text immediately. So all I have to do is user input dot value. All right, so whatever the user types in, but right now the user hasn't typed anything, but we just hard coded it. All right, so what we did is we put in a value inside the input tag just to assume the user has typed in something, and HTML allows this. All right, so it's the same thing as typing document.query selector dot value. You see, so it's like, oh look, listen, get me this user ID, which the ID is input, right? So we just say dot value. It's an extension. You can just add whatever the user types in, push it into this point, this area. All right, so I'm not going to repeat myself twice, so I'm going to remove this. Okay, so what the idea, I'm adding it here at the bottom. So let's go back to our browser, refresh. Okay, so you can see users. All right, so sorry. So right now, what you see here is users. Users is coming from JavaScript, and we're logging it out directly. Okay, so why do you need this? Right now, remember I taught you how to use the arithmetical operator in JavaScript. Okay, so let's say I create a variable, and I say variable message is equal to a string. All right, so we know what a string is by now. Variable message is welcome, Mr. John. All right. Welcome, Mr. John. Okay, so then if I want to use this, I could say welcome, Mr. John, but rather than typing Mr. John as a string, I could just remove this. Okay. All right, so save this. So I could console.log two variables, right? So first variable is going to be message, and message is actually welcome. All right, then I to join two, remember the plus sign will not add up to a string and a number, so it's going to join them together, right? So we use the plus symbol because in our minds, actually, we want to join these items together. So welcome, user inputs, user input.value. So whatever the value the user types in, we're going to say welcome, user input.value. So save this, go back to browser. Oh my word, I was previewing this thing as well. Sorry, so I have to go back. So sorry, guys. All right, I have to go back. I'm going to erase all this. I want you guys to catch all this. So var, we're going to create the var message. Okay, a message is going to be equal to a string welcome. All right, so this time I want to console.log message. All right, so let me do this for you to see. Console.log message, refresh, welcome, right? So what I want is welcome users. All right, so let's go back to, oh, sorry, I haven't previewed that for you to see. Fresh. So welcome, you see welcome over here, right? So we want welcome John. So welcome, whatever the user types in here. So we use our console to test these things, okay? So what I need to do next is grab this user input as a variable, all right? Since it's gonna have the input that the user is gonna type in, user input, okay? Welcome user input, the input.value, okay? We need the value, which is what the user types into the box, okay? So the value. So let's see what this gives us now. Okay, so welcome users, you can see there's no space in between this as well. So technically let's review it again. So user, fresh, welcome users, you can see there's no space between the text. So all we need to do is just come to your string, adjust your string here with the space. All right, save. And let's preview it again. All right, so you can see welcome users. All right, so and that is how you could just you can combine two variables using the plus symbol, and then you can get moving. All right, so now we know how to use these few things. All right, you don't want to type this value directly inside here, and this is where things get a little bit technical. You want to remove this, okay? Then what you want to do next is you use JavaScript to actually create a kind of functionality that could help you to get what the user types in. Now, if I do this message plus user input value and I type in something in my browser, if I click the button, nothing happens to the button. So because the button is not part of my script. So first I have to bring my button into my script, and that is submit button. So sub btn, and then is equal to document dot query selector. The button ID is btn. Save, right? Okay, so what I want to do is also console.log the button. So log the new variable that I just created. Button. So I need to be sure that my need to be very sure that my browser is able to capture the button. So then we will start using it, right? Okay, so I can get my button here. Now you can see there's nothing here, no value. So next thing we need to do now is go back to code and add a few things to it. All right. All right, so the next thing we need to do now is use this btn. So we don't just want to consider log these things, not actually what we want. So we're only just trying to see if we're getting feedback from this variable. So let us go straight now to using our button. Okay, so sub, which is the button, submit button. We want to now add an event listener. Add event listener to the button. Okay, so the event listener is going to do something, all right, and it's going to listen for click from our computer, all right. So whenever we tap our mouse button, to click on the object, we want something to happen, right? So first we select click, then comma, then when the button is clicked, we want to send a message to our screen alert. We want to alert a string, like don't forget, we could just push this variable name from here. All right, just push this variable from here into this position, right? Sorry, alert is not this bracket, it's this one. Okay, so sorry, I actually moved this guy. Okay, so instead of typing welcome in double brackets here, so what I'm doing is just pass message from here to here. So let's save this and check it out on our browser, see what we got. Okay, so now you can see that the moment I refresh my browser, I get a feedback, which is welcome, and this is not what we want. We want when we click this button, we get our feedback, all right? So you can see welcome, but this isn't what we want because every time I refresh my browser, you see this display. So fine, this is working. Okay, so we'll have to remove those, what's it called? Default behavior from our browser. So now, and that is one thing about JavaScript. Okay, you have tools that helps you to handle everything. Okay, so since this is working, we're fine with it. Okay, now we're going to create a custom method. If you watched the video on methods, you understand how we create method, right? To create a method, you use a keyword called function. So function helps us to create method. Okay, so what you have to do is right in between these double brackets, just after the click, you create a function, which is a method. All right, and then you give the function a name. Okay, so this is how you create the alert method that you see. You just create a method that do something. Okay, like you create the alert method. The alert method displays text on the screen. So we're going to create a function, and this function is going to call DISP to display items on the screen, and it's going to have parentheses. The double bracket here means parentheses. Okay, so it's just it's a standard way, a way to create methods. Okay, so you just have to type the name of the function with the double bracket. Okay, all right, I've explained this in my previous video. So now here we write, we define all the functionalities that our new method is going to carry. Okay, so what we want to do first is um, okay, let's do this. Put this is events, all right? Events, all right? What event does is, event is actually an inbuilt method that is in JavaScript. And this method, what it does is you use it to carry out certain actions on your browser, right? So event is the name of a method with a dot symbol, which gives you access to all of the bundles of tools that the event has. And we're going to pick one of the tool, which is called prevent default. In a short form, you could use E or you could use event. So I'm going to pick event.prevent default method. All right. It is this method is actually what stops the browser behavior when we refresh. The browser will not display alert automatically. It will only wait. So this kills the initial behavior of browser behavior. All right. So the next thing we want to do now is then we could now use the alerts inside our method, our own method that we're creating. We can now display whatever I want to display. Now, remember we have the input.value here, but first thing we're going to do, let's alert message. So sure, we're getting our message, welcome. This is less complicating. So let's refresh. All right, so now our page is clear, no issues, so submit. Yes, so we get our welcome feedback and click OK. So our page is working quite all right. Just in case you didn't see that video, do a replay and check it out. So we'll go back to Visual Studio Code Editor. The next thing I want to do is I want to add some extra functionality. So now remember, this is a user input query selector. All right, I could just decide to get dot value directly from here. Okay, so whatever the user types in, we store in our value. So then we could say message, which is welcome, plus user input. Right, so this user input. Right, so we're gonna move this user input from here, and then we'll just add it here. Save, and then we'll go back to our browser, refresh the page, and then we'll type here, David, the strongest man in the world, killed so many soldiers, forced to destroy the giants in the Bible. Oh, welcome. Okay, we are allowed to welcome. Why are we not getting a variable dot value? Okay, I think there must be an issue somewhere. Let's go back and see. Okay, user input dot value. Okay, so all right, so first off, let's go gently, step at a time. I want to get my, sorry. So I want to get my user input, say console.log, console.log. User inputs dot value when this button is clicked. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Undefined. Okay. Let me see. Undefined. Undefined. Okay. Let me remove this. Okay. Let's save. Review again. Fresh. Where are you? Welcome. David. Okay. So what is going on? So let's go back to JavaScript. Message plus user input. Yep. Alert message plus so we're gonna do it in two ways. Yeah. So message plus user input. So right, so we need to track down where we're having issues. Just very short. So let's refresh. Refresh. Okay, welcome, blah blah blah. Welcome, David. All right, so okay, so we get our feedback as we wanted. So let me see. Okay, that value. All right. So at the end of this lesson, I would like you to work on this. All right. Create your user inputs and then you submit. And next thing I'm going to introduce you guys to is GitHub, because I want to push these codes on GitHub, so you can go there, clone, and then you can just download the codes from GitHub. I'll show you my GitHub account. I'll try and add it to the video link so you can download it. All right. So thank you very much. I want you to do this as quickly as possible because we have a lot to cover. All right. Thank you. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe and like these videos. They're important to me. Please like, and please, if you have any questions, just type it on the comment section. If you want to contact me, I'll put my email on the playlist on the video link. Then you could just send me a mail. If you have any questions or whatever, I'll be glad to help out. All right, thanks.